And it turns out that that is actually illegal because you cannot pay for medical samples. That would be trading in body parts. It would be no different buying, a kidney on the open market.
Hey, it's Nicole. Welcome back to the show. So excited to have you and to introduce you to today's guest, Dejan Nenov. He is the founder and chairman of Peloton, and he works right now solely with healthcare startups in different stages. And we're going to talk a bit about artificial intelligence, machine learning, and deep learning. It's a platform that helps disease detection, learning from man's best friend. That's right, from dogs, and how they could detect cancer in urine is leading the way and teaching them how to create models to do just that. He even has this really cool story about Theranos and his perspective on getting funded inside of healthcare and technology at this time.
Hey, if you're an entrepreneur who usually fast forwards intros just like this one, this is the podcast for you.
Hey, just a reminder, our show is brought to you by SmartCookie Media, where we believe data tells a story, and not just any story, your business story. As a subscriber to the show or as a client, you'll get insights on profitable, data-driven marketing strategies that work for you and your business, your industry. Not some cookie cutter trends, no. Ideas that are led by your customer data so you know they'll work for you. Connect with me on LinkedIn or Instagram to learn more. Everything's in the show notes. Now, let's get back to the show. Dejan, I'm so excited to have you here. Welcome to the show.
Thank you very much. Pleasure to be here.
I'd like to start off the show the same way I do with every single guest. Tell me, how would you finish this sentence? You know you're an entrepreneur when?
Well, this is easy. When you have written the first personal check to cover payroll.
Yes, absolutely. It sounds like there could be a story there. You want to tell me about it?
I spent the majority of my professional life doing the Silicon Valley two-step, startups. And there are really two kinds of entrepreneurs in Silicon Valley, those that have written a personal check to cover payroll and those that have not and have always spent money raised by investors. And there's a significant sort of long-term difference in attitude and I would say performance operationally in those two types.
Yeah. So tell me about that. That's really interesting. A little behind the scenes comment that you just made right there. There are those that have and there's those that haven't. So some of your projects, I'm guessing, are either bootstrapped, you didn't fundraise, or you just were that committed. So tell me about those differences.
Well, certainly, you bootstrap a lot of startup ideas and you have to be prepared to shut them down when they do not perform to your expectation. You have to be brutally honest with yourself about the fact that most of your ideas are actually not a good ideas from a business point of view. They may be fantastic technology ideas, but that doesn't mean that you can build a business with them. In Silicon Valley, I think technology, especially software technology around the world, we have this condition of coming up with solutions that are looking for problems to solve. And I've seen it many, many times, and I have been personally guilty of that. So doing startups in a lean fashion and quick to fail is a lesson we've learned over the years that it's very important, and I strongly recommend it to everybody.
Yeah. So tell us, what businesses do you own and what are we going to chat about today?
Well, I'm involved in a number of different businesses and startups. They're all in technology. Currently, the one I'm really excited about is Luventix, which I had an opportunity to see the video about. I'm excited about it because, it's always team, technology, market opportunity, and meaning, really. And this one checks all the boxes. The founding team is one person I've known since middle school and the other person I've done 7 different companies with. And in our investment pitch, we make the statement that we've generated about $3.5 billion in shareholder value over the last 20 years together.
Wow.
And we're still friends, which is,
That's what I was thinking.
On a more serious note, I have been involved in healthcare and very in depth in the last 5 years or so. I'm not a healthcare expert or a long-term professional. I've learned some very interesting lessons. Healthcare is different from any other technology space that I've experienced. And so the opportunity to do something there that has, what we call population health impact is very rewarding. We also are kind of lucky to be using the newest toys. Artificial intelligence, machine learning is technically what we're doing, that everybody's talking about to build the technology platform for Luventix. Even though I must admit that we're repurposing the work of one of the co-founders who's been doing AI and ML work for drug discovery for 15, 20 years before it was fashionable. It's just one of those rare cases where you get to check a lot of boxes that make you feel good about waking up in the morning and diving in.
Yeah. Okay, so let's bring everyone into that a little bit. So I'm going to paraphrase, but I will also just link directly to your site so they can see this. It's about a 3-minute, 4-minute video, but I'm going to grossly paraphrase. And I do mean grossly. Like, I'm not going to get it all right, but let me share the highlights so that everyone knows what we're talking about. Because you said AI, but it's really machine learning. So, what folks I saw was a couple hosts on this short video sharing about the technology advances they're making based on what they've learned from how dogs can pick up a scent in cancer patients based only on their urine. So, based only on that, they looked at that and said, hey, if man's best friend can do that, what can we do with that information? How can we learn from man's best friend? How can man's best friend lead the way? Right. And then create the models that will help you to distinguish what is or isn't present inside of that urine. Now, I didn't catch how many number of different illnesses or diseases you're already building to be able to track, but I did catch that in one research study inside there, it mentioned a 95% accuracy. And all I keep thinking is as I was watching that, that if and when medical professionals who you said you're not a medical professional, right? You're okay.
I'm
So
not,
then I
no.
can speak freely. Okay. Who sometimes some, certainly not mine, doctors, may have a God complex. They may know what they know and they think that they know and they're perfect. But if they would adopt this, use this as a tool in treating, man, we may have really impressive outcomes. We may see, man. But it's that if. How do we help them do that as well?
What I've learned in healthcare is that the process of building healthcare technology and actually making it useful for providing healthcare to people, treating
Yeah.
patients,
Yeah.
is a very different process from any other technology that you build. There are certain ethical issues.
Of
Most of
course. Of
us
course.
in technology are really not internalizing on a daily basis. Every time we recruit a software person for a healthcare project, I start my introduction with your first rule is going to be slightly different from what you're used to. It's going to be do no harm. Just because there may be technology out there that does certain things, you also have to demonstrate that it's improving already established standards of care. Because what's the point of doing the same thing with a different technology just to have a competitive product that may not be, the best use of resources and a whole plethora of other considerations that are specific to health. What we're excited about, and there's actually a very cute story about this. We were literally sitting around the dinner table after a day of skiing with my co-founder, watching TV, and we saw this dog sniffing urine and sitting down when there was cancer present. The patient that the urine came from had cancer. The geeks that we are, we started to say, well, hey, there are chemicals in the volatiles, what is evaporating out of this urine that the dog's brain recognizes and classifies. Wow, how do we catch that? Well, there's gas chromatography that's been around for 70 years, and we can turn these volatiles in urine into data. And hey, the brain is classifier. We know how to build classifiers with machine learning techniques. So let's
Yeah.
try this and see if we can reproduce it. And, this has been kind of a project that's been percolating for close to 10 years, and we really went all in on it about 2 years.
Wow. Wow. We have a saying on this show about shiny objects and getting distracted and how it can sometimes lead to your greatest whim. So to picture you there after skiing, watching a little TV and catching this and to be pondering and noodling on it for a bit and then to jump in, that's what I would define as a whim, just paying attention as the geeks that you are. Really incredible because ideas can strike anywhere. And I love the point that you said you're improving on the standards of care. There have been things that have been around 70 years, and you're saying, hey, we can do that smarter. We can improve that. As a marketer, I've worked on different teams that get very stressed out, and they should, right? We're in lead generation and revenue, and we've got to test things until we can prove it all. So it can be stressful, sure. One of my mottos was always no one's dying on a stretcher today. Like it's going to be okay. Where you're right, you've got to tell your software engineers, hey, do no harm. This can get sideways. Where do you come from? What makes you this way as somebody who jumps into startups, multiple, there's several open tabs on my screen that you're involved in, not just this one. What led you to this type of work, not just with healthcare, but just the nature of entrepreneurship?
Chance and circumstance, most of all. I actually grew up in Eastern Europe until the age of 17, and I came to the US in 1984. And I went to an engineering school in the Midwest called Rose-Hulman, studied electrical engineering, computer science. And then 2 years out of college, I joined a real estate company in the Midwest, which managed mini storage.
Okay.
And they wanted information technology improvements and upgrades. And 2 years later, we took that company public on the New York Stock Exchange as a REIT by selling it as a high-tech business in a low-tech industry.
Mhm.
And completely by chance, I had done geographic information system work in college. And I was able to leverage that to build kind of a model of how to predict the probability that the mini storage warehouse is going to increase occupancy and rates by comparing how close it was to major highways, schools, car dealerships, and fast food joints. And this is 1992.
Yeah.
So pre-IML, if you would.
Yes.
And that gave me a taste for public markets. I went through the experience of, old school public offerings with flying around to pitch to investors. And for those of the audience that are old enough to know what printing the red herring means, that's the document for the public offering
Yeah.
that was used to be
Yeah.
printed by a printer in Chicago. And so with that experience, which completely circumstantial and random and literally the, one-eyed man in the world of the blind kind of in terms of technology, I said, hey, I love this. And I moved to San Francisco in 94, I believe, and started getting involved in startups all the time.
Yeah, all the time. Okay. So tell me that story from your perspective on how important it is really for any type of technology around healthcare to be ethical, to do what's right, and to certainly stay out of hot water.
We as technology entrepreneurs tend to be quite arrogant. You give us a problem and we can solve it. Boy, we
Yes.
can come in and improve the process and give you better software, and it's going to be faster, better, quicker, more profitable. And when you get to healthcare, you realize that by doing that, you can actually harm somebody. A couple of quick examples I can give you. I do a lot of work with medical labs, in vitro labs that process samples for people. And we said, oh, we're going to dramatically improve the process. Here's a system that you can build any workflow with. You can actually describe your workflow in plain English, and the AI is going to build it for you. And then you can push the button, and it's going to start ordering tests. And it's a wonderful thing. And all the tests are going to be delivered right back through email and SMS. Then immediately, we became aware that we're ignorant because the lab director raised their hand and said, no, you can't do that. I said, what do you
Mm.
mean we can't do that? Of course we can. It's easy. Technology, email, SMS. Said, well, if a patient's results is serious, you cannot just give them the result back. Even if they personally ordered the test and they paid for it as maybe a direct to consumer test. Because what if that person has a very serious condition? They need to get counseling. They need their general practitioner to get involved. In other
Mm.
words, if I send drop of blood and my test came
Sure.
back that I
Yeah.
have a blastoma that's going to kill me in 6 months in
Right.
99% certainty,
Right.
do you really want to email that result to me back and
Right.
say, sorry to inform you, but the prognosis
Right.
is not so good? So those kind of things don't come naturally to most, technology entrepreneurs. You really have to stop, hit the pause button and think about them a little bit. Another thing which really was kind of interesting to me, and I completely was not aware of it, in our Luventix startup, like every other medical drug discovery or diagnostic startup, we do clinical trials, and the largest cost for a clinical trial is recruiting patients and getting samples, in our case, urine samples. And, early devs said, oh, urine samples are so easy. Go on the Facebook and ask people that have a particular disease to email us. We'll send them a kit and, compensate them with a little honorarium of 25, 30
Yeah.
bucks, gift card, and they'll send us their urine sample. And it turns out that that is actually illegal because you cannot pay for medical samples. That would be trading in body parts. It would be no different buying, a kidney on the open market,
Oh
right?
my gosh.
And I
And
said,
there you are just trying to, just trying to figure it out.
right.
Yeah.
Like most things in life, there's actually practical ways to accomplish that. You
Sure.
can compensate people for their time to fill out their medical history and for their time to take a trip to the lab to give a sample, but you cannot buy
Right.
medical
Yes.
samples.
Yes. Yes. Yes.
Those kind of things in healthcare is a learning curve. And it has
Yeah.
been for me. In fact, very recently with the software development business that I'm involved in, we wrote a software developer healthcare manifesto, and not so much manifesto, but kind of a pledge. And we modeled it, very closely to what MDs do when they graduate, which is
Yeah.
the Hippocratic Oath. But we rephrased it from a point of view of software developer working in healthcare. And we thought
Oh
it
my
was
gosh.
important to make sure that people understand that healthcare is a little different.
Yeah. Beautiful. Beautiful. Was there another story you wanted to tell me though?
I was going to tell you the Theranos story.
Yeah. Yeah. Let's hear it.
So when we first thought of this idea for Luventix, for our urine diagnosis technology or medical diagnostic platform for technology, we started the process. I spoke with the FDA and I wanted to know how many patients in a trial they would want for us to demonstrate the technology is viable. And the number was under 1,000. And then just before we were about to kick off the trial, and this is before AI and machine learning was in the news,
Mhm.
pre-chat GPT years.
Yes, yes.
There was a stage of review, and the FDA person called me back and said, "We're sorry, but your technology is novel. It's a black box. We don't understand it." There was no
Mm.
guidance on building software as a medical device, at the time. And so they said, "You're going to need a much bigger trial." I said, "Well, how much?" I mean, maybe 10,000 patients. At that point, it becomes rather expensive. And
Mhm.
I'll give you an example. One of the gold standard clinical trials conducted recently was done by Exact Sciences for the Cologuard test. I think they did 10,000 patients from 100 sites. And I want to say a similar trial recently cost $100 million.
Mm.
So at that point, I decided that I need to get on a plane, fly to San Francisco, and hit Sand Hill Road in Palo Alto and talk to some people I had worked with before about funding this project. And of
Yeah.
course, I went to a friend first, somebody I've known since the mid-20s. He was very kind to me, saw me on a short notice, gave me 30 minutes of his time, listened to my pitch, and said, "This is wonderful. I love it. You never fund it." I'll
Mm.
say, "Why not?" He says, "Well, because any money in medical diagnostic is going into this company that has it all locked up. It's called Theranos."
Mhm.
And so we literally shelved the project. And we came back to it
Ow.
18 months, 2 years
Wa
back and restarted it.
Wow.
And in a small world, actually got to meet the whistleblower who started the whole Theranos saga at the medical conference a couple of years ago. So it's
Yeah.
kind of came a full circle.
Wow. Wild. Wild. Oh my gosh, how things all intersect with each other. What did that do for the community in terms of raising funds? Theranos shows us what's possible, then proves that's not at all possible. People, funders may feel duped. But what's changed?
Not much. I mean, I'm kind of skeptical in the human condition and the rationality of markets, but investors at a certain stage tend to have a herd mentality,
Mm.
the fear of missing out. And we see that in technology hype cycles. Right now, everybody has to have AI in the company name, in the product name, and in the investment portfolio. And that's great, but we're overdoing it like most things.
Yeah.
We apply rational skepticism when evaluating anything at all, or a basic scientific method and asking experts for opinions, rather than blindly following somebody else who supposedly did their homework. And because we recognize them as a brand name in something, we just follow them. But, nobody's infallible. I consider it to be perfect if I can bat 50% on anything I make a choice on. So
Yes.
healthy skepticism, a little scientific method,
Mm.
don't follow the herd always, a little contrarianism. I think those are good things. But
Yeah.
I guarantee you, in our lifetimes, we will see another Theranos
Yeah.
event.
Yeah. Absolutely. I just wondered if maybe you have seen, investors saying, we're going to do a little more due diligence, if there's been anything like that at all, or nope, business as usual. There's going to be one, there's going to be another.
I want to make sure that I'm very clear. Most professional investors are very good at what they do.
Yeah.
There is always a human factor, human error, circumstances. The whole Hewlett Packard autonomy acquisition resurfaced. And I
Mm.
can tell you, Hewlett Packard is not an ignorant organization in doing due diligence on acquisitions. And yet, they truly made a rather significant mistake in acquiring that company. So, how does that happen?
Yeah.
It's, again, human error, circumstance, overexcitement about technology.
Yep.
It just kind of the stars align and things happen.
And it happens. Yeah. 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 So there's something fascinating about folks like you that we get to talk to on how many times you will take an idea and you can repeatedly turn them into successful strategy, turn it into a successful project, successful business. Talk to me a little bit about that because it is a batting average, right? And I think it's really important to share. Here's what it really takes to be able to do that again and again.
Honesty and self skepticism. When I was much younger, I used to come up with great technology ideas and thought that every one of them could be a successful business, and that's a fallacy. The real key to success is to identify demand. And notice I say demand and not a problem to solve. I'm older now and more skeptical. They're great problems to solve. But if you want to build a business, you have to identify those that, people are willing to spend resources on. And I don't mean just cash and money,
Mhm.
but time, engagement, etc. So identify the demand, then find solution for it. It is possible to build technology and then monetize it, but it's highly capital inefficient. There's just so many Googles and Facebooks that can be funded today, or Amazons. We need to be more efficient in our capital spend today than we were 20 years ago in the dot-com era. Fail quickly, be honest, invest in sales and marketing very early. Do not spend more than 40% on development and engineering. You need to spend resources in market research and sales and marketing,
Yeah.
whether it's
Yeah.
digital or old school, doesn't matter. And, if you can get 1 in 3 ideas to survive and 1 in 10 to be a great return, I think you're doing great.
I love that because it reminds all of us that you said it as young, that you were younger then, but I think sometimes it's about being an overachiever, right? We want all three to hit, but the honesty of knowing like if it's 1 out of 3, pretty great. You mentioned demand, and I can't quite place the author right now, but anytime I hear the word demand, I think of like find the starving crowd, right? Like find the ones that are begging for it and asking for it. What are some ways that you have found the demand, found like, okay, this is where it's at, or validating an idea that is earlier on than what people think? I love to validate ideas using digital, see if somebody's interested in something, but certainly you've got some tricks up your sleeves.
Talk to a lot of people and talk to people that are outside of your echo chamber. We tend to surround ourselves with people that we like and that we share thinking and ideas with and
Yeah.
are aligned in many ways. You have to get out of that to get new ideas and to appreciate opportunities. There's no magic bullet. Follow the news, read the news, talk to a lot of people. Basically, keep your ear to the ground. You never know where an idea is going to come from.
Yeah. Yeah. So, what stage are you at right now with the business? You started up, it's been a couple years in. Sounds like you've done some fundraising.
I'm involved in companies at different stages, mature, growth, completely new startup. And they all have different demands on your
Sure.
time.
Yeah.
It's really unpredictable of how much work and effort any one thing will take. Sometimes you think that, oh, in the early days of a startup, there's so much to do. That is true, but not always true. And also in a mature public company that you have to keep showing growth and, paying dividends to your stockholders. There may be a lot of work, even though it's well established, and you would not suspect how much work it can be. It varies greatly. Typically, what you want to do is certainly to focus and not be too scattered and know exactly what is top of mind at any moment in time. And then don't start too many things. Exit at least one thing before you start another, successfully or otherwise, even shutting something down. Otherwise, you're just distracted and not really fully invested. And so focus
Yeah.
is very, very important.
Yeah. Any tools or management techniques, things that you do that maybe would be new to us to hear? A lot of people listening know what it's like to manage multiple priorities. That's for sure.
2 things in the last year or two have been really useful to me. One of
Cool.
them is the remarkable pad where I can actually write
Oh,
and
yes.
it goes
Right.
everywhere for me. And the other
Yeah.
one is just the Google task board.
Yeah.
As I go through the day, I just throw in things that need to be done and I have a way
Yeah.
to come back to them. And
Yeah.
those are simple things, your to-do
Yeah.
list.
But I think the
I,
remarkable pad or anywhere that you can write, I think is a really good one. I think there's been some research that says that when we read something on a screen or even if we were to type it out, our brain doesn't retain that information the same as it does when we write it out. I certainly know that growing up as a kid that there wasn't a remarkable pad option, but am I still writing notes down? I am. And I always say, man, if they can make sure they're digital because they need to be stored somewhere, they need to go somewhere else. They don't just need to be in notebooks on top of notebooks. That's for sure. So I think that's a really valuable one. At least I identify with
well,
like being able to
the,
write it yourself.
the other couple of things that I like the remarkable for is that, I can throw a web page I'm looking at by clicking a button and it would go to my remarkable as a PDF. Also, if I want to be drawing something while I'm talking to people, I can share it off to a Zoom meeting and have a sketcher that then stays with me. So
Yeah.
those little things are really great productivity enhancers, at least for me personally.
Yeah. 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 I get that. I totally get that. Hey there, busy movers and shakers. I get it. You're out there conquering the business world, hustling day in, day out. Well, guess what? We've got something to amplify your efforts, something that's about to make your entrepreneurial journey even more exciting. Introducing our podcast production services, your ticket to sharing your knowledge and stories without breaking a sweat. We know your time is gold. That's why our team of podcast pros will take the reins, handle all of the behind the scenes stuff. From brainstorming fun topics, introducing you to incredible guests, polishing up those episodes, repurposing your content so you can share among lots of platforms. We're here to turn your ideas into a podcast that's as easygoing as your favorite chat over coffee. Imagine establishing your expertise and your authority, making connections all across the globe in just minutes a month. And the fun doesn't end there. Our data-savvy approach gives you insights that will help you fine-tune your content and connect with your audience even better than before. So join forces with a crew that's as enthusiastic about your podcast as you are about your business, the SmartCookie Media crew. Let your voice resonate, your stories inspire, and your ideas spread like wildfire. Level up your personal brand through the magic of podcasting, whether you choose audio only or video too. Are you ready to dive into podcasting? Your journey to share your knowledge starts right here because it's your voice, your podcast with our expertise. SmartCookie Media, turning your stories into conversations. So you are a really fun personality. To hear that you have an engineering background, not all founders do. I've got to say, I worked with some engineers that just view the world as broken and they got to fix it. So it's like this burden and they're grumpy, and you've just been really a joy and a delight.
I was very fortunate to have great mentors. A retired British executive was on the board of one of my companies circa 2000. And he pulled me aside one day and said, "You're a very smart guy, but you have a gap in your education. And if you want to grow professionally, be more successful, there's something you need to learn." And of course I said, "Well, what do you mean, John? What is it that I should learn?" He said, "You need to take a job as a salesperson. You need to live on commission for a year and
Wow.
make cold calls."
Wow.
And it was completely circumstantial that I was in a position to do that literally 3 months later. And I didn't spend a year, but I spent about 9 months doing exactly that, making cold calls to sell a product that I had actually instigated and built. That really, really changed my perspective and the way I approach technology. And I'm eternally thankful
Yeah, what a gift.
to that mentor.
Yeah, I'm so impressed that that's the thing he said to you. Living on commission, I've done that myself. It teaches you so much about how to treat another person across from you, you know?
In retrospect, it grows you a thick skin, which you absolutely need as an entrepreneur when you go raise money.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
it was a
Yes,
win-win
absolutely.
in multiple
Yes.
ways.
Yeah. So good. So good. Oh, I love that. Well, let's get you wrapped up here. So tell me, what is one of the key lessons you've learned as an entrepreneur? Maybe it's a mantra that you say again and again.
Double check and then triple check.
That's good. I bet you there's lots of stories there. What is your definition of entrepreneurial success?
When your success is not purely individual, but when everybody in the team feels that we have succeeded and not just me, and we want to do the next one with you again, then you've done okay.
Oh, that's such a good answer. Tell us, where can we get in touch with you? Where do you want us to go visit and learn more
Yeah.
about you and your work?
Certainly LinkedIn. If you want to see the history of projects, not necessarily companies, but just technology projects, our software firm, which really builds the technology for everything I'm involved in, is on panaton.com, panaton.com. Go to industries. We've actually made an effort to describe our projects in a typical fashion. In other words, less marketing and more specifics. And certainly, if you're a startup and looking for technology, call us. We have helped a lot of people have successful raises and exits. And then, of course, watch our video on Luventix.com. It's fun.
Yes, it is so fun. It's so good. I really, really love it. Well, thank you to all of our friends over at Kitcaster and their work with your team at Peloton, because they sent you our way. And this has just been an absolute delight. Thank you so much for being on the show.
Thank you very much, Nico. Pleasure.
You've been listening to the Serial Entrepreneur Show, produced by the team here at SmartCookie Media.